So today we're gonna look at how to swap arms between the two Thor Love and Thunder figures. This was asked the other day on a Facebook group and I wanted to show how it works. So right now I've got hot water boiling right next to me. You should be able to just boil hot water if you want to, just on a stove with a pot, or use a kettle of some kind. They all pretty much work the same. So as long as you're able to get it hot, then you can get started. So this is almost ready to go. While that gets finished, we'll prep our figures. So first with Ravager Thor, we're gonna just pop off his head. Head just pops off, ball joint. And then we're also gonna take off his vest so that it's not in the way. Because why heat it up if we don't have to? Okay. And then we've got our regular costumed Thor. We're gonna pop his head off as well. Again, regular ball joint. And that's pretty much it, because he doesn't have a vest to remove, and the cape is not removable as is. So those are ready, and we're just waiting on the hot water to heat up. So while we wait for the hot water to heat up, let's talk a little bit more about boiling and popping, which is what a lot of people will call this. This is possible on newer figures, and it's not always easy to know what newer in this context means, because what happens a lot is that Hasbro will reuse the body molds of what they've created in the past and just repaint them. And so with these ones, we know that this is entirely new because there are no other figures that have this kind of molding in there. So we know that this should be this should work for what we're trying to do. And then this one should work as well because it's the pinless design. So don't try this on every single figure that you're wanting to swap arms with. In the past, what customizers had to do was to actually find the seam right here, and then they would drill a hole and then put a screwdriver in there, like a flathead, and then crack it open in order to get all of the parts out of it. But this shouldn't be that same kind of issue. Hot water is ready, boiling water. So we're going to put it in a bowl. If you are gonna boil your water on a stove, I still recommend that you pour it into a bowl separately. And this is gonna be hot to the touch. So if you have gloves, that'll help. But as you can see, I'm just gonna leave the first Thor in there, and hopefully the water will get in there and heat it up enough so that I can just pop his arms off. So you don't need to worry too much about possibly melting anything, because this is still plastic. It's ABS plastic, and the melting temperature is over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and boiling water isn't getting nearly that hot. Okay, so this is basically take two because my camera died. I was in the middle of taking apart Ravager Thor, and I thought I would be able to just boil and pop the arms off, but that's not the case with Ravager Thor. So what I ended up needing to do was actually cracking the torso off of the body, and that was the only way to actually get the arms out. So these arms, I'll show you, have these square pegs in there. And so there was no way that any amount of boiling was going to soften this up enough to pull out. So in order to get this out, what happened was I did soak it in the water, and then once I got it out, I took these small needle nose pliers, I jammed it in here like this, and then I pushed it apart until it cracked open. And so that was what was that allowed me to just get it all the way open. And it was nice because it was a clean snap, it was a clean break, and then it all just kind of came out. So that's the first part of all of this. And you'll notice that there are bite marks from when I was trying to clamp it with the pliers. Is what it is. I'm not that worried about that. especially because once you put everything back together, you're not gonna see it anyway. But now that that's all taken apart, I'm gonna go ahead and do regular Thor. It's gonna be the same thing. Now again, we're gonna use a separate bowl and we're gonna put our boiling hot water into it. And I believe these arms should come off okay. So we're gonna just get him down into there and let him soak a bit. And it is super hot, so if you have some kind of heat resistant gloves to use, then that will probably help you a lot with this. But I'm just using just a regular towel and hopefully I don't burn myself. All right, let's see if that was enough. There we go. First one is out. That wasn't too bad. Let's try the next one. Nope. So you can see I popped off at the bicep instead by accident. But that's okay, because that should just pop right back on. There it goes. Okay, this one was way easier. So this one you can definitely just boil and pop off, and that came off pretty easy. But again, you know, we're gonna look at the arms, and you can see that they are fairly different. So it's not gonna be a straight up pop and swap dealio with these guys. Okay, so let's figure out how we're gonna do this. So if we're gonna do this, then we want these to be as close to being the same as we can to get it in there. So let's see if we can't just remove this part in some way. Okay, I'm gonna use nippers. These are for doing model kits like Gundams. And we're just gonna cut the rest of this off because I'm getting kind of tired of trying to use pliers. Okay, so let's take a look at this with that now removed in comparison. They are pretty different. But let's try this. Let's try jamming it in and see if it works. So we'll heat this guy up because we want it to be pliable. And ideally, it will just pop in. Close. So that kind of works. That can work for you if that's okay. But you can kind of see that right here that it's still sitting out. So it's not quite what we want. So I'm gonna let it soak for a little bit longer. And if this doesn't work, then what I'm gonna try is I'm gonna try dumping the water and using freshly hot boiled water, just because this has been out for several minutes now, so it may have cooled down enough that it's not going to heat up enough. But fingers crossed. Nope, didn't take. So I'm trying to compare the size difference. It is. Okay, I'm gonna try with fresh hot water. I don't know how well this shows up on camera, but so you can kind of see the difference in the size of the circumference of those parts. So either I'll need to trim this or really get it nice and hot. All right, let's trim it. So I tried making it approximately the same circumference as that, and give it a shot. I think it's almost working, but I think this is getting too long, so we're gonna just trim that guy off too. right, let's hope I didn't completely destroy it. Cool, got it. Look at me now, Mom. All right, so we have a freshly armed Thor on his right arm. No gap. All right, let's do it again. Okay, so we know that we need to remove this black piece, and we know we need to cut that off. I am gonna start by soaking it in the boiling water again, just to make it a little bit easier to cut. Cool, that came off way easier. And then we're gonna just cut this bit off. I've trimmed that down a little bit further to get this size down. The water, I am heating fresh hot water to see if we can get this soft enough to jam it inside of our bake hole. Now I'm not soaking it all the way down. I'm trying to do just the peg, because if you soak the whole thing, then it becomes way too pliable, and then it kind of starts falling apart. Yeah, here we go, got it in. That was not the easiest thing ever, but here we go. Okay, so you can see that it's in. There's no, oh, sorry. So you can see that it's in, there's no gap. As fully as if that's how the figure was made. Last part we'll do is the head of Ravager Thor. Now we have a bare-armed Thor, Love and Thunder. So the only other thing would be that if you actually watch the trailers or the movie itself, you'll notice that the gauntlets are, he does wear the gauntlets. He doesn't wear the gold the whole time. And so what's interesting is that you can actually tell that it does appear to be a, let's see if I can show it, a separate piece. You can kind of see that it's a separate piece. But I think that's beyond what I want to do on this video right now. If you're doing this and it's still hot, then it might still be a little too pliable, so just let it cool down a bit, and then it'll strengthen back up and you'll be totally fine, and it'll be fully functional the way you would expect it to be. Recap, Ravager Thor, you have to crack it open. You have to do a lot of trimming. With a regular Thor, you don't need to do that. You can just pop the arms off and swap them out as you need to. So if you do decide to sacrifice your Ravager Thor for this Thor, then you could also even opt to keep the arms as is and pop them in and out if that's a thing that you want to do. Kind of depends on you. So if you want to see if I can figure out how to get these gauntlets onto these arms, then let me know. I'm not too keen on doing it just because it's a lot more trimming, but if that's helpful for somebody, then happy to try. Otherwise, if you're not subscribed, subscribe, like, please, that would be cool. And yeah, I guess that's it until next time.